All right. Another episode here of Confessions of a Street Broker. And got a guy here who's seen the Dallas landscape change dramatically. Longtime competitor, but friend, Floyd Bates, co-founder and broker of Bates & Myers Commercial. What's up, man?
It's good to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you for doing this. You've been around and seen a lot of crazy things change, and so I'm really excited just to kind of hear the history and the knowledge you have, and it's this is gonna be fun. So
yeah, sure, appreciate it.
We were just talking before we came in here how rental rates are just creeping up and up and up, and to a point, our clientele, very similar people, small business owners, local business owners making local decisions,
Absolutely.
And, how high can rents go before people are just not profitable anymore, So it's a dramatic landscape change of what people think these buildings that
it's shocking to some, shocking to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I got in the business, it was a matter of a lot of people didn't even want these buildings, They're just kind of like, you couldn't sell 12 caps to people, right? It's like,
no.
I'll go buy some .com stock or something like that. So
investments back then, you had to get 10% return to get anybody's attention.
Yeah.
Now, 6.5%.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, and then I think it's a lot of financial engineering to justify 6.5%.
Exactly. Yeah, so, I like that term.
Yeah.
Financial engineering.
So it's man, it's like I was telling you earlier. I was like, man, I'd talk to some capital markets guys and be like, hey, how are the bigger guys underwriting things? And they told me, and I was like, I don't know if we'll be able to compete, so they can just own it all.
Yeah.
So,
you're right.
But, well, man, let's just start from the beginning.
Okay.
Where'd you grow up? Where are you from?
All right. I grew up in South Oak Cliff.
Okay.
In fact, I was one street over. I went to school with Joe Rust. You might know of Joe Rust. He's an old broker. Works in Ellis County.
Yep.
So anyway, it's funny how we're still in business with each, and we still just did a deal with him. So anyway, Joe's a good guy, but we were the Cherry Point Bombers.
Okay.
We had a little football team.
Yeah.
And we were real proud of that. Yeah. So about that time, Earl Cabell was our mayor, and he started doing block busting and different things like that. So we needed to move. Yeah. And it was a good time. So Dad bought a farm down in Ennis. That's where he was from.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad he did that.
Yeah.
It got me out of town. It got me out of a city type life. And not that Oak Cliff was city, but it was still pretty uptown at the time. And we bought a farm, and that's where I was raised in Ennis, Texas, for the main part.
Yeah.
Moved down there when I was a freshman, midterm freshman.
Okay.
I could have went to Waxahachie, but I asked Dad, who's winning football games? And he said Ennis. And I said, that's where I want to go.
Yeah.
So anyway, we had a great time in Ennis, Texas.
Yeah.
It was a good way to get to know a lot of people.
That's awesome. So you got to grow up on a farm. How many acres was it?
103 acres. Still have it today.
Oh, that's awesome.
My mom and dad just, Jeremy, we worked awfully hard back then. I had a lot of, in fact, it kind of taught me my work ethic even in this business because, we were what you call gentleman farmers. Dad had old tractors and they always had a flat, or some of them didn't run. So you learn how to work on things, do things, get things done, tie things up. And it was a good experience. I didn't like it at the time.
Yeah.
I left home real early in life and because I was mad all the time. But it all worked out.
Yeah. So you go to Ennis High School, you graduate. Where'd you go to college?
Sam Houston State.
Okay, you're a Bearcat.
I'm a Bearcat.
Yeah.
I was probably the oldest graduating student at Sam Houston at the age of 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was there a gap between high school and college?
Yeah, I went to work for the Southern Pacific Railroad.
Okay.
And
how did that come about?
Well, I needed to.
Yeah.
I got married. Had a young one.
Yeah. Okay.
I was 19 years old.
Okay.
And she was 17, so we had to get a quick start on things.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it didn't last long.
Yeah.
So that's what my stint on the railroad was, and I was a foreman on the railroad, built railroad tracks, traveled all over South Texas.
Yeah.
Great job. And then, ironically, something along the way, I was in a really bad car accident, and I had to go to the hospital in the worst way, and I had surgery. I was in a body cast for the most part.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, it was bad, and I was almost paralyzed. And then
what happened in the car wreck?
My drunk friend was driving, and of course, we were driving from where were we at College Station to Austin.
Yeah,
and unfortunately, he was the only one really drinking in the car. I was in the back seat. He decided he was going to pass the car on the right side of the road, which was a bar ditch.
Yeah.
Went out of control and hit a culvert. And it's a lucky we're still alive.
Yeah. Did you get thrown from the car?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we were laying there in the bar ditch, and ambulance came up. He picked me up, said, "Hey, can you move your toes?" And I didn't know what he's talking about at the time.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh my word, that's serious."
Yeah.
So I moved my toes, and he said, "You're very fortunate."
Yeah.
So anyway, they fixed me up, put me in a body cast, and for almost a month I was in the hospital.
Golly.
Got out, went back. I was at the house. I was going to be out of work for about 6 months from the railroad. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden I thought, I'm not going to lay around here and look at TV and stuff. I'm going to go back to school.
Yeah.
So that's what got me to go back to school.
Yeah.
So I got back in school, and that's why I was so late getting graduating. And once I graduated, then I'd already took a leave of absence from the railroad, and I said, I don't want to be driving spikes at 50 years old.
Yeah.
That's when I went to the oil field in Oklahoma.
Okay. So you go up the oil field in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Went to oil field because I went up there with my dad worked Frito-Lay for 48 years.
Okay.
And he got me a job in Oklahoma where I've never even really been to Oklahoma.
Which part of Oklahoma? Oklahoma City area?
I started out in Yukon.
Yukon. Yep. We own some buildings in Yukon.
From Yukon, then I kept seeing all these bumper stickers said, if you don't have an oil well, get one.
Yeah.
I thought, I think I want an oil well. So Eddie Childs owned a company called Western Company of North America. Uh-huh. He also owned the Texas Rangers.
Yep.
And along with George Bush. And so anyway, I called them up. Back then, you got the Yellow Pages out. Yeah. You looked in Yellow Pages, so okay, this is what they do. So that's where I went. I made a phone call, and they said, come on down, we want to interview you. I had a degree.
Yeah.
And so they put me to work in Western oil fields, and I did that for 3.5 years.
Yeah. So I don't know if you know this, but close to Yukon area, Jeff and I's whole family's from the Hammond, which is near Elk City. So you're kind of going out towards that way.
Oh, yeah.
So that's, we actually own buildings in Yukon now.
Oh, wow.
So,
I didn't know that.
It's still a wolf. I might have done my best real estate deal of my life in Yukon, Oklahoma, honestly. It's Yukon's a booming area right now, Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
So.
In 84, 85, I got in 81, and it was just booming.
Yeah.
I was meeting people from all over the country. Everybody was making lots of money.
Yep.
It was there that I bought my first house. It was 24-foot RV travel trailer. Because you couldn't get an apartment. You couldn't get a hotel.
Yep.
Everything was full. If you did get one, you're going to pay out the nose for it. Mm-hmm. So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to go buy an RV, and I'm going to find a place to park it.
Yeah.
That's what we did.
So, it's interesting. That time, like I remember, so it was early 80s like that.
Yeah.
Jeff and I's aunt was doing something in the oil field. And she's had an incredible real estate career, and she had some stint in oil. She's blown everything she's ever made, but she's been a millionaire probably 20 times over. But I just remember being a little kid, and I was sitting in my grandma's house in Hammond, and I'm like, man, she's got a brand new Corvette. Like, wow. Like, what is going, and there had some oil company coming. It was, it's just one of those old body style Corvettes. And I was just like riding my bike, like, that's so cool.
That's super cool. I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
So anyway, we did that. And in 84, business got really bad in the oil field. Banks were closing down.
Yeah.
Oil field companies were shrinking. And that's when I came into office one day and they said, Floyd, we need to bust you back to a service supervisor. I was a salesman at the time. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. Yeah. I threw him the keys and went and hooked up a 24-foot travel trailer and drove it back to my mom and dad's farm, parked it.
Yep.
That's where I was living. I was really going places.
Yeah. You know what's funny about the travel trailer idea, though? I saw this. Yeah. I can't remember who the player was, but there was an NFL player, and he was getting cut from all these teams, so he just bought a travel trailer, and he lived in it. Him and his wife would live in this travel trailer, and he'd get cut from a team, and they go drive to the next one, and he finally signed like a 4-year contract. They're like, we can buy a house now.
Yeah.
Similar thinking. So.
Well, to add on to that story, Jeremy, I got that travel trailer, but now I couldn't park anywhere.
Yeah.
So we went out and bought an acre of land, but we didn't have any water. So we told the owner, said, look, no, we didn't buy it. We leased it from, and we said we want to lease it for a year free, but we're going to drill a well.
Yep.
We drilled a well, ran a bunch of water hoses out, and we leased it to some of the other guys, and that's how we lived while we were there.
Yeah.
Worked out great.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Now, I can't
That's
tell you.
That's value-add real estate right there.
That was
that's
my
what
first
that was.
Yeah. But the quality of water, I couldn't promise you what that was like. No telling.
Yeah.
But anyway, we didn't test it.
Yeah. Awesome.
But anyway, it was good times.
Yeah.
Still got friends from that era.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. So you come back to Ennis.
Moved back to Ennis. I was there, and my mama, of course, at least I could eat good over there. Mm-hmm. And I went up there to the main house, and I said, Mom asked me, what are you going to do, son? I said, well, I think I'm going to move to Longview and start a landscaping business. Okay. That's kind of, I understand farming and whatnot. I can do that.
Yeah.
She said, why don't you get into commercial real estate? I said, Mom, I don't even know what you're talking about. Yeah. I said, one, I don't want to sell houses. I don't want to be arguing over what color or paint is on the wall. I just don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. She said, no, I'm talking about commercial real estate. And so she was a banker. She saw these guys coming in and out and putting money in the bank and whatnot. And I said, Mom, I don't know what I'm going to do there because, one, I'm sure you need some kind of license. And two, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
Well, what did we do back then? We didn't Google.
No.
I got out the Yellow Pages again.
Yep.
And looked out the Yellow Pages and found Trammell Crow. I found Vantage. Yeah. I found Bradford. Bradford may even not been there then, but Robert Lynn Company.
Yeah.
They were on Stemmons Freeway. I said, I know that road. I go right by it coming home from Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, I'm going to go knock on a few doors. I'm going to put together my resume. And it was weak. But I put that together. And so I started walking in doors and just knocking on doors. That's all we knew to do.
Yeah.
And I said, I'd like to have a job. He said, well, you need to talk with Bob Lynn. And I said, well, okay. Does he have a minute? Well, he actually is. He's in. Well, he just lost 3 agents about then.
Okay.
You know them all. They just walked out. And so I said, okay, I'd like to visit with him. So we talked, And he said, well, what's your experience? I said, I have none. I know how to sell, though.
Yeah.
And he said, well, you got a license? No, sir. He said, let me think about it. So the next morning I called him. He said, let's put you to work.
Yeah.
I'll pay for your license. I'll pay you $1,000 a month. $1,000 a month. A lot of money back then.
Yeah. Yeah. What year is this? This is like 86?
It was in March of 84.
84. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
41 years ago, Jeremy. That's pretty crazy. I know it like
that.
Like a puff of smoke.
Yeah.
So anyway, we started out and, he started intimidating me like Bob Lynn did and does. Yeah. God bless his soul. Mm-hmm. And we had a good time.
Yeah.
4 or 5 years of tough times. Yeah. Then in 85, the real estate market crashed. Mm-hmm. And then it was even more tough times. And if it wasn't for me just living on beans, couldn't have made it. But
back in so this is the savings and loan crisis is essentially what tanked everything, right? Or
a little earlier than that.
Okay.
But it was still going on right then. Yeah.
I remember I read somewhere, I don't know if you experienced this, but was there times when there would be 2 listing brokers on a building? Did you ever see that? I read that some guys, like when all those properties were getting sold off, you'd have like two listing signs in front of a building. Be like, pick which one you want to call.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, there was that. Yeah. And there was a lot of, it was so tight. I mean, I had to, that's how I learned about Garland and, all these other surrounding towns that most people never even get to.
Yeah.
And because I was trying to go where all the other brokers hadn't been yet.
Yeah.
Because you'd walk in, you're the 10th guy that walked in here. Well, you saw some of that.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was pretty rough.
So when you started at Robert Lynn, was it still the submarket territory model at that point?
Yes, very much so.
So what submarket did you start
no,
at?
there wasn't any territorial market. Okay. Go wherever you want to go.
Oh, okay.
Do whatever you want to do.
Got it. Just go. Just win. Just go win, right?
You kill it, you eat it.
Yeah. There you go.
And so it was it was tough. I tried to quit 2 or 3 times, and I'd walk in and I'd have this little listing commission that so back then, we didn't have CoStar or LoopNet. We had this, everybody had this little Bible of listings, and I'd find a building, write all the information down, put it in a book. Mm-hmm. And someone like Chuck Splatter would lease it, and I didn't know any of that was going on. Yeah. Had a little check there. Yeah. And it was tough times, but we stuck it out. I'll tell you what, even we all had to have 2 or 3 jobs, at least I did.
Yeah.
And I'd gotten married 2 or 3 years after I got since I left. Yeah. In 91, I got married. So I was dating my wife now. Mm-hmm. But it was tight because I had to go work for just whoever would hire me on the part-time Friday, Saturday, park cars at Baby Doe's.
Yeah.
I was worried about some of my customers pulling up and seeing me park cars.
Yeah.
Now that's nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
And so that happened all the time.
Yeah.
And so, but you could make $60-$70 at the end of a night, cash.
Yeah.
And, you and your girlfriend go out to eat or something.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way it was back then.
So I think this is a very interesting thing to talk about because I think there's a lot of people that want to get into the brokerage business.
Yeah.
And they got a degree and they feel that they should, be into a position and it just all goes the way they all see it happening. Yeah. But I think a lot of them, it gets really hard and their ego is too big to be like, hey, I need to go get a part-time job because if I stick this out, it'll work.
Jeremy, it's after a little while in this business, you can't have an ego.
No.
You can have some pride and you can have some gumption, but you don't have any. I mean, you've got to put that beside.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get beat up.
Well, I just think that if there's anybody that's listening to this that's in brokerage and like this is really hard right now, go get a second job. There's nothing wrong. You know what? If you want to be different, all your friends going out on Friday and Saturday night while you're working.
Yeah.
fast forward 20 years and see what the difference is, so.
There was a lady that worked for Bob Lynn back then. Her name was, and Jeff will know her, Etta Mae Sabian.
Okay.
Etta Mae kind of took a favor to me, and she'd give me odd jobs. One job she gave me, she said, Floyd, I need you to insulate the bottom of my house. Now, what that means is it's pier and beam. You go under it, you take that old batting, you stick it up on in the air.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're working in a foot of space, and it's like, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
So I took my dad up there and he helped me do it one weekend, made a few bucks, and that's just the way it was.
Yeah.
I'd do anything.
Yeah.
But I didn't like the business that much then.
Yeah.
But it grew on me.
Yeah.
Every now and then all of a sudden it kind of starts flowing. It's like, you know.
Well, it's a lot of people a lot of people quit right before it happens too. You just kind of like, it's kind of like
they do.
I remember there was some event or something. I don't know if it was some kind of military training or something. Someone goes, they'd beaten these guys down and they said, all right, get up. We got to go over this hill. And a bunch of dudes were just like, I'm done. And all they had to do was go to the top of the hill. But they didn't know when it was going to end, but that was the end. Yeah. And then half these guys quit. You made it all that way to quit at the very end. So, the first part of it's rough.
And I can tell you guys that I was with that did that, exactly that. And it just like 6 months from then, it just, a switch was turned on. It's like, wow, let's go get them.
Yeah.
So the phones start ringing. You called that guy 6 months ago. He had his card, your card, and it's just, man, this good. It's good.
Yeah.
But you're right. They quit too early.
Well, I think too, you gotta remember, I always thought about this as like, and I tell younger brokers this at Mercer Company, be like, hey, look, you're going into a guy's business and he thinks about real estate like once every 5 years. And that is all you're thinking about. So like, remember that dynamic and relationship. He's thinking about getting the widgets out the door. He didn't really,
right.
He kind of cares about real estate, but like, hey, cool, man, but I got to get these widgets out the door. And so you got to just remember, hey, just because he doesn't want to talk to you doesn't mean he's not ready yet.
Yeah.
He's just not ready yet.
Yeah.
So
you're right. You're right. It's when it's real estate day.
Yeah.
It's real estate day.
That's right.
And if you just happen to be there, you're going to get the business.
That's right. That is exactly right.
So,
and you know what? You might just get, I've given this example, but Maxwell Paper on Regal Road.
Yes. Oh yeah.
I called on Rod Smith for 4 years straight. He would every month he would never see me. I got him on the phone. One time he laughed and hung up on me.
Oh, wow.
And then one day he calls me and goes, I need to go buy a 50,000 building. Clamp Paper's kicking me out. And I was like, let's go. I can't get the guy to talk to me now after I sold him his deal, but he doesn't care. But when he needed a building, he's like, this guy showed up enough, So
I know it. It's story after story like that.
Yeah.
Jeremy,
it just turns on at some point.
It is. It is like, went to work that day. I think I need a building.
Yeah.
I'm called Jeremy Mercer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Or you know what else happens? You went in there forever, and then some other guy walks in the door that day, and you're like,
bingo.
He showed up on real estate day, to your point. And you're like, dude, I put all this time in, and see you later.
I've sold you everything you have up to now.
Yeah.
And now it's time to do a big deal.
Yeah.
And we've known each other 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy walks in, and this is what gets you. They give you a call. 5 minutes. He tells you, I'm sorry. This guy walked in the door, offered me too much money. I couldn't resist. I had to take it. Mm-hmm. They didn't need another broker involved.
Yeah.
What do you say that? I mean... I know what I want to say.
Well, I remember what that happened to me one time. And I said, well, what'd you sell it for? And he told me, and I go, you sold it about $200,000 less than what we would have got on the market. And I was only going to charge you like 60 grand to get it done.
There you go.
But I will tell you this is one. This is what's crazy is that you do all that work forever for these people.
Yeah.
And then they just discard you one day like that. It's tough.
It's disappointing.
Yeah.
And it hurts. It hurts for a while.
I had Parish Hair.
Yeah.
I called on Parish Hair and I got in there and they were expanding, but they were doing a dead storage deal at a time. I did 3 dead storage deals for them in Brook Hollow. And I'm like, okay, I see where this is going. I got it. Then they go, hey, we need to go get like a 150 to 200 near the airport. Great. Options.
Yeah.
Hey, let's put that on hold. Then they went and did a 15-year lease on 300,000 feet without me. And I was just like,
yeah.
Then they put the building on the market that they owned on Regal Road to sell.
Yeah.
And they hired a guy who runs an electrical contracting company that has his real estate license to sell it for him. I know the guy. I'm good friends with him, went to high school with him. Nice guy.
Yeah.
He's an electrical contractor.
Yeah.
And then they had the nerve to call me up and tell me, hey, our new building's not going to be done in time. Can you call our landlords on our dead storage spaces and see if we can get some extensions? I'll never forget this, Floyd.
Yeah.
I'm going down the toll road south in Addison, and like I gave it to him.
Yeah.
I was like, I was like, you got a lease, go read. I go, do you know how I eat, man? Oh man, well, we just this deal just kind of fell in our lap. And I'm just like, double bird. I was like, you couldn't even give me the consolation prize of selling the building. And
I get it, Jeremy.
It's wild, man. It's wild. But you know what? Be prepared because that's going to happen.
Oh, yeah, it is. But at the same time, you'll get a phone call and you'll be the easiest deal you ever made.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You'll make the biggest commission, maybe not the biggest, but a pretty good size. I mean, it's just like, I don't even feel good about taking this money.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd say that, but
well, hold up.
Wait a minute. I take that back.
Yeah. Well, Jeff always said this because he'd be like, sometimes you go see someone, they're like, hey, I need this. And you just walk in the next day and you're like, here it is. And they're like, oh, that was too easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. You shouldn't be punished for hitting home runs.
Oh, I know. I know.
And, but people like to punish you in this business for doing that sometimes. So
that's the business we're in.
It is. But hey, it pays. You get it rolling, it pays pretty well. So and you know what? Let's be honest. Those are like 5 to 10% of the real situations, right? Most of the time, you got really good clients. You work with really good people.
You really do.
A lot of good people,
and you learn. Some advice I got a lot of advice, but some of the advice was know who you're working with.
Yeah,
you got to know who you're working with.
Yeah,
you can't just. It's too hard out there.
It is, and it's too much time to waste.
And you got to be careful too now as well because of the legal situation and everybody gets so happy. You got to be so careful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you just got to have eyes wide open. Mm-hmm. Be sensitive to that.
Yep. So, okay, well, let's get back. Sorry, we derailed there for a little bit, but little broker.
So,
okay, so you're working at Robert Lynn. You're going out to Garland's like tertiary at this point.
Oh man, I mean it's like Garland, Mesquite, just anywhere, everywhere.
Yeah,
where you could find. Okay, so you start looking for fancy cars. You start looking at full parking lots. You start looking at all this stuff.
Yeah.
You start looking at if they got the dock door open, how full are they? So you start learning this stuff.
Yeah.
And but it was hand to mouth for a while.
Yeah.
But it was good.
Yeah.
And then I stayed 7 years with Robert Lynn.
Mm-hmm.
And Richard was there about the same. He started a little later than I did.
Okay.
And we decided, and things were changing.
Mm-hmm.
Leadership was changing at Robert Lynn. I learned a great deal under Bob Lynn. Some of it I didn't want to learn, but I did the hard way. And anybody who's worked for him understands that.
Yeah.
But he taught me a great deal, and it came to a point where it said, we need to do this. We can do this.
Yeah. So
I started out with $5,000 of seed money.
Yeah.
And I thought, I don't know how far this is going to get me. So first thing you do, you go find a presidential suite.
Yep.
So somebody can, type for you.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah.
And, with a phone and all that stuff. So that's the way we start out. We start out in 1991, Bates and Myers Company.
Where was your suite at? Your presidential suite?
Do what?
Where was your presidential suite at?
It was on Stemmons Freeway at Empire Central.
Okay.
And I had a lady there. Boy, I should remember her name because she was kind of a tough old gal. but we probably needed that.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was Richard and I and telephone and several other little companies in there. And we just started out scared to death.
Yeah.
And about that time, about 6 months into that, and I thought, well, I don't know how we're going to make it, but we're just going to do what we know to do. And then also you're fighting over, well, I want to get into all that stuff about whose leases, whose listings are still yours or not yours,
Yeah.
But anyway, we got all that worked out. And about that time, the savings and loans started selling off and calling loans on all these different companies, buildings coming available in the market so we wrote a letter to, I forgot who it was at the time, but we wrote a letter and said, I'd like to get some of your listings. And they said, well, send your resume. So we did, put together a little resume and sent it to them. They said, okay, these are the buildings we're going to sell. And so we said, okay, just give me as many as you'll give me.
Yeah.
But we kind of won some favor with the guy. And so we did that. We started out with some listings. Nicely, 20,000 square foot buildings. And what we were finding, Jeremy, is that all we had to do is go to the tenant and say, hey, do you want to buy this building? They're going to sell it.
Yeah.
And that was it simple. So we bought several of them ourselves.
Yeah.
And Richard's father-in-law, thank goodness for Harvey Gandy.
Yeah.
He started financing these buildings for us. We started buying them. And then what we couldn't buy, we sold to the tenant. And all of a sudden, we were in business.
Let's go.
Yeah. This is crazy.
Yeah.
So anyway, that kind of got us started and got us staying in the business. And so we just kind of took it from there. And it was the craziest thing I ever seen.
Yeah.
But it worked out.
Yeah.
So we're still here all these years ago.
That's awesome. So I guess, is that, Brook Hollow Design District's kind of home
we primarily,
base now.
because we cut our teeth in Trinity and Brook Hollow and Walnut Hill and just we'd go north of the toll road some.
Yeah.
Or 635. It was plenty to do.
Yeah.
Plenty to do. And back then it was all owned by individuals and stuff. It's not like it is so much now.
Yeah.
They were all individually owned. So we were having fun. It was really worthwhile.
Yeah.
So we started hiring a few people, and finally we decided to get out of the high rise, and we bought our little building down on Irvin Boulevard, which
what year did y'all buy that?
We bought that, and well, it had to be 90. We started the business in 91. It was probably 92, not too long after we.
Okay.
Yeah, bought it from Norma McMahon Steel Business, and it was like grown up. She had every publication of Life magazine you ever think about, every bag of popcorn you could buy. I mean, it was It was crazy.
Yeah.
And I was going to tell her, I said, Richard, I got to tell Norma we need the building.
Yeah.
We need to move in that building. And he said, and I was scared of her. She's rough gal. A lady in the steel business.
Yeah.
So anyway, I did that. I started to go over there and tell her. And then her husband called us and said, Norma has died.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, oh, man, I wish that woman's death. I felt bad about it. So anyway, but she passed away, and we ended up just clearing it all out and redid it, and pretty much been there ever since.
Yeah, there you go.
And so now, all these years later, we just sold the business to my son Caleb.
Okay.
And Caleb has bought the business and the building.
So you work for Caleb now?
Pretty much. Don't tell him, though.
When did all that happen? Just here recently?
It happened, we've been planning this for about a year.
Yeah.
And it just happened about, what day is this, Mark? January 1.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so we're back at a little building on Commerce Street where he owns a little building over there, and then we're redoing 2705 to his liking.
That's funny.
And so anyway, we're having fun.
Man, Caleb, he can dig up a deal, man.
Yeah, his real. I'll tell you something about Caleb. And maybe one day you'll interview him. But
I am. I wanted to get you first, though.
Yeah,
I'm glad
you did.
I was like, I can get Caleb over here anytime. I was like, I want to get you first. So.
Yeah, well, I can still remember something. So anyway, when he got out of, he went to school at Texas Tech. When he got out of school, he decided that he didn't want to go into the oil field. I tried to talk him into going to the oil field because I knew quite a few people there. We had a lot of connections there.
Well, especially at
and
Tech.
He said, Dad, I want to be in the real estate business. Mm-hmm. And I know exactly what I want to do. I said, son, it's tough business. Because I remember, what I'd gone through. And I didn't care if I wanted to get him in this business because it's so tough.
Yeah.
And he just took to it and never stopped.
Yeah.
So he did a really good job. I'm proud of him.
Yeah. No, he's done a good job. And
in fact, I got an older son, Conrad, and he is in the real estate business as well. Mm-hmm. But he's also a school teacher at Waxahachie High School.
Okay.
And then I got a daughter that just now got residential part-time. She's an elementary school teacher.
Yep.
And then I got an older daughter. Her name's Amanda. Mm-hmm. And she is in Argyle now. She's been in Virginia for a long time with her husband. Is in the Secret Service up there.
Oh, okay.
Actually, they don't call it Secret Service. He was with the counter assault team and all that stuff. So really interesting.
Yeah.
Job, interesting guy.
Yeah.
And then I got a middle daughter that's a delivery nurse up in Minnesota. So 5 kids.
Man.
Yeah.
Good thing you got into real estate.
Yeah. So anyway, we sold the business, Caleb, and we're still keeping Bates & Myers as the brokerage.
Yeah.
At least for right now. And then Richard and I are still doing deals, still managing property, and just things will be, changing, but I still enjoy the business so much.
Yeah.
But that's what's going on right this minute.
That's cool. Now, we've got to work with Caleb on, we started lending money, and he had like a really unique deal, and he was like, hey, he bought it.
Yeah.
He made an incredible buy on a tax lien.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, I just put like all this cash into this. Would you just refinance me out while I wait on the redemption? And I was like, what are you in it for? And he told me, I was like, yeah. It was a great little deal for him. And so
his real gifting is really buying property, and selling property. That's what he really enjoys.
Yeah, no, he's good at it.
In brokerage, you don't ever really have control over anything. You think you do.
You don't.
But you really don't.
No. And that's part of why I do this a lot more. I still broker some client stuff here and there, but I mean, I like knowing that I'm controlling my own destiny, because you can, just as long, just like we discussed earlier, you can do all these things, and some guy that just got in the business shows up on real estate day and all your work just got vaporized. And,
I know. Well, just like we've been talking about, and it it's still is. That's all I've done, and it's been a great career, been a great business.
Yeah,
highly recommend it still.
Absolutely,
but it's some tough times in it though.
Yeah,
but it makes you better.
Absolutely. What let's talk about the landscape of Design District in Brook Hollow from when you started down there to what it is today. Like,
we went from an industrialized industrial parks, printing, textile.
It was the printing mecca of the world at one point.
Man. If you could get a printing company, they were there for 20 years.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't move. Cost $250,000 to move that thing.
Yep.
So, printing company, metal manufacturer, presses, everything you could think of. And then all of a sudden they started sending business overseas and all these industrial products and getting them made so much cheaper, and people working for $1 an hour. You just can't compete against that.
No.
But we're starting to see that change.
Yep.
But right now we went to distribution, and we went, showroom, live work, Design District stuff. These old industrial buildings turned into all air conditioned, white boxes. Went from $2 to $4 a gross a square foot to 12 and 15 and 18 net. I mean, and it's just so I've sat here and watched all this happen. And it's crazy.
Well, it's we leased buildings for gross numbers of what OPEX are today. Like the OPEX on an industrial building is what we used to do a gross lease on.
Yeah.
$250 gross, $3 gross,
yeah.
$350 gross.
Yeah.
Like that was, you start getting into the threes, you're kind of like, whoa.
I sold a building down on Dragon for $11. Richard and I both did for $11 a square foot, $11, owner financed, nothing down. 11,250 square foot. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
It's worth $600 a foot now or something. It's bonkers.
Whatever.
Jeff, one time he had 3 buildings that he could buy on Levy Street for $13 a foot, and Mr. Lynn told him he was overpaying. So he dropped it.
Why didn't we buy everything?
Oh, I know.
But
and what was crazy was the run up, right? There was a real run up. I feel like 2015, it started just like, started stacking. And I looked back and I felt people were overpaying on stuff then. And I look back and go, you could have bought every bad deal in 2015 and been super right a couple years later.
Yeah.
So
you're probably right. 2015 was kind of a demarcation line that, kind of like things kind of started changing.
Yeah.
But Dallas and then Texas become just a mecca of business.
It's unbelievable.
And people started moving in this area and phones were ringing and it was, rates started going up.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just gotten crazy now, but we're still doing business. Still, people are paying this.
I'm still here,
which I'm happy with.
What's interesting, Floyd, is like we work in some other markets. We got a good footprint in San Antonio. We got some stuff in Austin area, Oklahoma City. Those are like rounding errors compared to Dallas industrial.
Yeah.
The Oklahoma City's 150 million square foot market. San Antonio's 150 square, Austin's 150 million square foot market. That's like half a GSW,
Yeah.
It's the industrial mega market that Dallas is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And
it is. And really, that's probably what I was best suited at is more the industrial side of it.
Me too.
And now it's kind of, we had to morph into where we're commercial real estate brokers.
Yeah.
And I still, but we're seeing a change. People are coming back, and industry's coming back in this area, mainly because of electricity is stable here. Mm-hmm. Overseas, it's not stable.
Yeah.
That goes on and off, and you run all these glitches in their computer system, and their machining is all got to start over and reset. So anyway, it's
I knew. It's funny. When I started, I was Brook Hollow Design District. And I think like the first week I went to go make calls in Design District, I got down there at like 8:30, start making calls on the street. No one was at work.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I'm not really a Design District guy anyway. So I walk into Jeff's office and I said, can I have Redbird instead?
Yeah. You were good in Redbird.
Yeah, no, yeah. Redbird was a good market.
Yeah.
I ended up dumping Redbird, and here's why, and you'll totally get this. Again, our business was owner users.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the owner users in Redbird, now it's different, right? Do you remember no one would go across the river either way?
Yeah.
No one from Redbird would go to Brook Hollow. No one from Brook Hollow would go to Redbird.
You're right.
You're right. Now I'm selling Brook Hollow people buildings in Redbird.
Yeah.
Now. And, but the challenge I ended up having, and the reason I got rid of it, is I got in with a lot of good owner users down there. Well, where do they all live?
Yeah.
Waxahachie.
Yeah.
Red Oak.
Yeah.
Ennis.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, I want to buy a building. I'm like, great. They're like, well, can we buy a building in Waxahachie or Ennis or something like that? And I'm like, yeah, well, of course you say yes, right? Sure. I came in here and asked for this. And then my geography was just so spread out at that point, because I'm on a tour in Ennis and then I got to get back to Brook Hollow for a tour. And I was like, I gotta cut this.
Yeah.
And so I finally cut it one year. It's funny, the year I cut it, I ended up doing my best year in Redbird because I had made all those calls. And then everybody starts calling me,
Yeah.
So,
True.
But that's ultimate. But I loved Redbird. Like I loved it because no one loved it.
Wait, you can walk in the door and talk to someone too.
Exactly.
They're not used to seeing someone to talk to very often. There. So yeah, you had the whole market to yourself down there.
Yeah, it was good. And I would go to the 7-Eleven right there on 482 and eat my lunch on the back of my car, and all these gangsters be walking in the 7-Eleven. They just got up, all this stuff. So I loved it down there.
Jeremy, you were the kingpin down there in Redbird.
So, it was
and all the buildings were 20 to 50,000 square foot.
They were all big deals.
Yeah,
slower velocity, but big deals.
Yeah,
you did a deal down there, it was a big deal. So, it was. So I was an industrial. I grew up in a metal shop, and I understood that. So like when design district's a different. Like you got to kind of put a different brain on for that, right? It's.
Yeah, well, it's not for everyone.
No,
right.
It just isn't. And so I realized real quickly, I'm like, I don't think I'm going to have success here. I was shocked Jeff did, because I feel like we're the same person. He just plowed right through it. He didn't have an option, right? Like he couldn't go back into Mr. Lynn and go, hey, I want a different territory instead. but we didn't have many people at the time, so I was like, let me go over here. So.
No, I get it. Well, the territorial thing is, it probably needed today, just because you can scatter shoot. And I did a lot of that.
Yeah.
I wasted a lot of time. You work a little bit here, and then you do a little something, and then you work over here. And it's hard to put anything together that way.
Yeah, no, it is tough. There's so many. It's crazy how you have this overarching theme of commercial real estate, and then below that you have asset classes, and then now below asset classes you have all these different subways to.
Oh my word!
You've got sub-market specialists, right? You got guys that just do leasing. You got guys that just do tenant rep. You got guys that just do sales. Guys that just do investment sales. It's There's so many ways to make money in this business.
I know
it's
But, back in our day, though, Jeremy, we did all the We did all those things.
You did all of them. That's what I grew up doing. I did all of them. I did investment sales. I did leasing. I did, and because you were farming a market, right?
Sure.
And
I mean, we didn't know any better, really.
No, but you had to have signs up, right? You get some signs up, get some brand recognition out there,
Yeah.
Make some sign call redirects and sell some buildings and all that
And all
stuff.
that's even changed. It's not like everybody goes online now and looks up property. They used to call you on your phone. Now they go to your website.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like they haven't talked to you yet.
Yeah.
And they'll send you an email. Unfortunately, and I recommend to these young guys, pick up the phone and call someone.
Oh, don't get me started on that.
I don't need no text. I don't need no email. Just pick up the phone.
Yeah. That's
anyway.
No, I'm going to tell you, you'll appreciate this story. We had a broker. These brokers bring us a deal in Houston. It's a $16 million deal, and we liked it.
Yeah.
We made an offer on it, and we're sitting there, and me and Will are sitting here one day, and I go, "What's going on with that?" And he goes, "I don't know. Let's call them." So we call them. Get these brokers on the phone, and they're like, "Well, what's going on?" He goes, "Well, they just, I can't get a hold of them." I said, "Okay, well, why don't you go to their office?" And he goes, "Oh, well, they sold everything, so they don't have an office." I go, "Then find their house. Go to their house."
Yeah.
He was like, "You mean like go to their house?" I go, "Excuse me if I'm wrong here, but I don't think anybody on this phone call right now is beneath a $16 million deal."
Exactly.
I go, "Have you ever done one?" And he's like, "What?" I go to the guy's house and get a hold of him and be like, "Dude, we want to do a deal. You want to do a deal?" Like,
yeah.
And this guy was shocked that I told him to do that. He said, I'll ping him again. I was like, "Don't ever say that word to me."
Yeah.
If you want to sell me a building and ask to make $400,000, go to their house. Go find this guy. Go get the answer.
Yeah. And that was probably several years ago when $400,000 was an awful lot of money.
Oh, God.
Still is, but
to a new broker in the business,
unheard of.
I mean, hey, you know what? I'd peel out of here right now if someone said I had a chance to go make a $400,000 fee on something. I'd be like, "Hey guys, y'all figure it out for the rest of the day. I'll be gone."
Exactly.
See you later. Like,
I'm gone.
Yeah.
And I don't know when I'm going to be back.
Yeah. I'm going to go hunt this down. I'm going to kill it, and I'll let you know when I'll bring it back, So it's
right. It's different mentality.
Well, here's the thing. I think if younger brokers will not be like their competitors,
that's a good point.
They will win.
Yeah. It's a good point.
Because
good point.
It's hard. Is like I had a guy, he's been calling me and texting me and emailing me about getting our property tax consultant business.
Yeah.
And I know the guy real well.
Yeah.
And known him for a long time. I just blew him off every time he phone called or he emailed or texted me. He walks in the office the other day. He goes, "Hey, I just want to talk to you about this." I go, "Just hold on a second." I go, "Angie, give him 3 buildings." I was just waiting for someone to show up.
Yeah.
I was like,
exactly.
I go, I was like, when you send me a text, you're in the text with my kids. You're in the message box with my kids, my buddies, my wife, some rando text. I was like, it's a mess. Like, I don't want to do business there.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I once asked Bob Lynn, it's interesting that you're talking about this. I asked him, I said, "Mr. Lynn, why do you hire me?" I said, I had one suit to my name and hair parted down the middle, mustache. I was a rough looking dude. And he said, "Because you knocked on my door."
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
He said, "If you can knock on my door, you can go knock on somebody else's door."
Yeah.
It was that simple.
Me and Will, we went out for a stint and we just went to like Preston Center and Uptown and called on all these capital companies. We're like walking in, we're like, "Hey, we buy buildings. Y'all want to buy some buildings?" And they're like, what is what are you doing here?
I get it.
I'm like, aren't y'all all here to like figure out how to invest in stuff? And they're like, yeah. I go, well, Floyd, this is hilarious. I walk into one place and it said real estate on their door. I walk in their office. This is like a year ago. He goes, I go, what do y'all do? He goes, what do you mean? What do we do? I go, well, you say you do real estate on your front door. Like, what kind of real estate do you do? Are you agnostic to real estate asset class? Do you do? He goes, what do you mean agnostic? I go, well, will you do multifamily and office? Do you do industrial?
What's your preference?
And he finally goes, well, we do industrial. I go, cool. You know what, man? I own 1.3 million feet of industrial. And like, it didn't even click in this guy's head. I go, you can buy my whole thing if you want it. He was just like, what is someone doing in my office?
Send me an email.
Yeah, send me an email. So those guys you can send emails to.
Send me a pro forma, an email. We'll talk, we'll go back and forth about a month.
It was so funny though, man. We were like street broker and capital people, and they were just like, what is happening here?
Yeah. They didn't teach me this.
Yeah. We walked into one guy, he goes, well, we solely provide the equity for these people. I go, well, do you want a girlfriend? He didn't even laugh. I was like, chill out, man.
No.
It was so funny. It was
regardless, you didn't sell him no buildings?
No, but
that's all right.
So we just call those people now or send them I send them an email that I can't write and put it in ChatGPT and clean it up and send it.
Yeah. His people call your people and y'all can talk about it. Yeah. Whatever.
So, it's funny. So but I think the main thing to think about though is like, man, I don't care how connected we ever get.
Yeah.
Real estate's about relationships and real people. And that's undefeated in this business.
Yes.
So
yeah, you can't overcome that.
No.
It's just what it is.
And I was looking at a post on Twitter the other day and some guy was like, I used to make 10,000 cold calls a year. And I just responded, I said, you know what? You're probably lying. I go, but secondly, if you did make 10,000 calls a year, your calls were garbage.
Yeah.
They had hardly any impact because you're just shotgun blasting stuff. And, a lot of people just want to do business with you when you show up enough. Like, to your point about working at Baby Doe's, it might have had the opposite effect. If one of your clients would have saw you there,
it may have.
They would have been like, "Hey, you're like, what, man? I gotta make a living."
Yeah,
they're like, "Okay, well, this guy might actually go work on it because."
And in fact, I was just giving some advice to a young man that Caleb hired, and I said, "Look, you can be upfront with these folks. You can be genuine. Just tell them, I'm new and I'm green, but I'll work my tail off for you."
Yeah.
You'll be amazed at how people react to that.
I think you're absolutely right. People are so receptive to that. It's when you probably when you talk too much is a big tell. You walk in, you start talking because then you get off track of what you don't know.
Yeah,
and
which is real quick.
And it shows. And so I think just being like, hey, I just need a shot, and you're calling on the major decision maker usually. So that guy just needed a shot at one point in life, most likely.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he'll identify with that.
Yeah. And they do. They do. They're still human.
Yeah.
And they want to help you.
They do.
Believe it or not.
Yeah. So it's, I'll tell you what's really cool about the business I always thought is how you get to walk in all these warehouses and see how people make money. You're like, you make money doing that? That's so weird. I wouldn't even have ever thought how to make money doing that. Like, how do you get into this?
How do you even think about this?
Yeah.
I know.
It's great. It's wild, man.
I know.
Something I, so talking about going and getting into and meeting people in person, what's like your most awkward or funny cold call story? Yeah. I'm sure you've got tons of them. But
most of them you try to forget.
Yeah.
But one I'll kind of sticks with me, and it was early on, and I was hitting doors and walking in. It's hot. It's a hot summer. And I walked in the door, and the owner was sitting right there. And I said, hello, I'm named. He said, wait a minute. Can you read? And I said, That's kind of a dumb question, but yeah, I can read. I just got my real estate license back. I can read. And so he said, well, go back out that door and see what that sign says. Well, we know what it said.
Yeah.
And I said, well, look, I have something here that I think you might be interested in. And I just, kept on going.
Sure.
Left him brochure and stuff. But, that kind of, it just kind of drives you to go on the other one, because it kind of makes you mad.
Mm-hmm.
But, and then the most awkward one, it's probably most awkward. Unless they told you they died, the person you asked for, they died.
Yeah.
And, it's like, ooh, I kind of eased back.
Yeah.
Well, the information I got, how you...
Who's next?
Kind of black out. You kind of respectfully recede and say, well, who took their place? So anyway, that's probably two of the most awkward things. It wasn't.
So are you making the real estate decisions now?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Anyway, I've had pretty good luck cold calling, but man, that's tough.
Yeah, it is.
Tough deal.
Yeah,
you got to do it.
It is. It is.
It's,
it's funny when I make calls now. It's kind of refreshing. It's like I don't have to deal with like BS and just go make calls. It's like kind of you've done it. You've done the reps so many times. It's kind of mindless. Yeah. It's like this is kind of fun.
Yeah.
More people will talk to you now. They're coming. Oh, I've heard your name around. Now come on in. So it's not as door slamming in your face.
You got to get through about 3 or 4 and kind of get in the groove, and then it kind of gets a little easier, to take some rejection and, just warm up to all that. But
so
that's, if it was easy, everybody'd be doing it.
That's very true. A lot of people get in the business and they're like, I don't like cold calling. Some people know that about themselves, but some people get in this business and go, oof, I don't like doing that.
Well, I'll tell you what I tell people. I heard someone tell me this one time, and it's true. Your presence is powerful.
Yeah.
Nothing takes place of you being there.
Yeah.
Show up, knock on the door, and do it often.
Yeah.
That's it.
Must be present to win. So
yeah. True.
So, well, what's like one of your most memorable real estate deals you pulled off? Doesn't have to be your biggest one or whatever, but just like one that was like.
Okay. I'd say that one that comes to mind would be in Venus, Texas.
Okay.
You know where Venus is?
I've heard of it, but I couldn't point to it on a map.
You go to Redbird and you just go south.
Okay.
You'll run into
South
Venus.
of Red Oak, right?
Down on 67.
Okay. All right.
Around Alvarado.
Okay.
Down there.
Yeah.
I was working a deal. I had a listing. I was trying to sell a 2-story office/retail building down on the square of Venus, Texas.
Okay.
Here's a friend of mine, a favor. It's something I probably should have never tried to do, but I just said, okay, I'll do it. I'll help you get this sold.
Okay.
And so he said, Floyd, I heard that the cafe is for sale next door. I said, really? And I said, well, let me send a letter to the owner. So I typed the letter out, but the owner was like, one of the owners was in Mexico. The other owner was up in somewhere north, Washington or something like that. I got a response. She called me. She said, I'd like to sell this building, the cafe. I said, oh, wow. I said, well, what do you want for it? She told me a cheap price. And I said, we're interested in that. And I don't even know. I don't know what I was going to do with the cafe.
Yeah.
But we're going to buy it at that.
Yeah. And
so she said, okay, draw it up. I drew it up. And I said, Caleb, we better go look at this building before we buy it. So we walk in. It's like, it's kind of a cool place.
Mm-hmm.
It's a neat little Mexican cantina cafe. So we closed on that property. And now all of a sudden we're the owners. Not sure what we're going to do with it.
Yeah.
We go next door and say, y'all own the cafe? Yeah. Now we own the building.
Yeah.
And I said, we're the new owners of the building. we'd like to start getting some rent.
That's why she wanted to sell it, huh?
They weren't happy.
Yeah.
And so then they said, look, I'm going to send my daughter. She was like a lawyer or something. I'm going to send my daughter up to talk to y'all. I said, okay.
Yeah.
And in her broken English. And so she comes in. She sits down at the table. She said, yeah, we're interested in buying it. She said, what are you doing with it? I said, well, we bought it from this lady.
Yeah.
I said, tell me, why did she want to sell it? Why was she so anxious? Well, she had a relationship with one of the peoples of the family, and she was, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned.
Mm-hmm.
And so she wanted to sell it and do this. And that's what she did. And we didn't get that story to kind of later on.
Yeah.
And so we ended up selling it to them, made a few bucks, turned around, bought another building. So that's probably one of the most unique things, kind of weird, kind of quirky.
So, okay, wait. So back up. So the seller of the building had a relationship with someone in the tenant?
That owned the cafe.
That owned the cafe, who was the tenant.
Was the tenant. Well,
they didn't pay rent. They were just the occupant.
They didn't pay rent.
Yeah.
And she wanted them to start paying rent.
Yeah.
But she kind of just foregone the rent because of the relationship.
Yeah.
Well, somebody played around on somebody. I don't know who.
And now it's time to charge rent or get out. Yeah.
It's like, we don't have no relationship. So anyway, the whole thing was a little, and I'm like, I don't even know if we got a good deed or title on this thing. But it was, we had a party wall and all that. So anyway, it all worked out.
Yeah.
We sold it.
Yeah.
Because Caleb and I was trying to figure out how we going to do the cafe business.
Yeah. You fixed to get into it.
Didn't think we want to do that.
No.
So anyway, but that was probably the most, unique little.
Yeah.
Not a lot of money. Wasn't bad, but it was just kind of a goofy deal.
Yeah.
But it worked out.
That's funny.
But there's some more stuff. I mean,
Well, give me another one. I know you got a vault of them.
We walked in Bill Campbell with Campbell Brothers. Now, you may not remember these guys, but they were, tell you how old they were. Bob Lynn used to work for the Campbell Brothers.
Oh, okay.
Before he had Echoes Land.
Yeah.
So anyway, we were showing Goodrich Tire. Big name back then.
Yeah.
We were showing them building on King Arthur.
Okay.
Walked into King Arthur, and Bill Campbell was there himself. I shook his hand. I was going to introduce the rest of them. I shook his hand, and he started cussing me out and wringing his hand like, you broke my hand, yo, blankety blank. And I said, and I just kind of shook it, just firm, kind of, nothing crazy.
Yeah.
And I looked at Richard and I said, we ain't leasing this building. So we just screwed this deal up. And so we messed around and made that deal. And he just he had to cuss me out good, but he was good after that. So that was another one that kind of stuck in my mind like, oh, wow. And then, you got your customer there, a good customer.
Yeah.
And, he's watching this charade and,
he's probably thinking, I want to be this guy's tenant.
Sure, man. And, that worked out really well for a long time. But, you just sometimes think, I screwed this deal up.
Yeah.
And it made anyway. Oh.
It's one thing I learned where I thought I screwed a deal up one time. I just didn't act like I did. I was like, oh, nothing's wrong. And my client was like, nothing's wrong? No, I was like, no. Hey, longer story. I missed a building like that he wanted.
Yeah.
And I missed it. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's under contract. He's like, it's already under contract? I was like, yeah. Like, I could tell he was like processing, like, did I hire the right guy? He missed like this perfect building for me. And I just act like nothing was wrong. And he just blew right past it after that. Like, there was a pause, but it was kind of like, if I would have acted like I screwed up, then he would have he would have taken that of like, you screwed up.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you're the right guy.
Yeah, you just had to press through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ended up making him a hell of a lot better real estate deal anyways. So
sometimes you do.
Yeah.
You know, you just, that's what makes this business so fun.
Yeah.
It's the greatest business in the world.
Yeah.
Or I wouldn't be doing it today. You know, it's still fun to me.
Yeah. No, it is.
You know, people are fun. You know, still get your heart broken.
Yeah.
You know, it's just life and times of a street broker.
That's right.
Yeah. Great name.
It is.
Yeah.
What's maybe like a failure or setback that like, you know, you learned a lot from? And
you know, we touched on it, Jeremy. I think some of the relationships you thought you had, you didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, really thought you had. You were friends.
Yeah.
You know, you knew their kids. They knew yours. You know, and just one day was real estate day.
Yeah.
And you leave $100,000 on the table.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I got to go home. You know, you need to lick wounds and get back after it, but it hurts. And so I'd say that's probably some of my biggest setbacks, of course, and miss a deal, you know, that you've been working on, and somebody parachutes in, and, you know, the guy changed their minds. You thought they were men of honor or women of honor, and they have integrity, you know, and turn out they weren't. So just in general, you know, just that kind of thing. It's just, like I said, I tried to quit the business 2 or 3 times, and whatever reason, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Just stuck with it because after a while, it's all you know.
Yeah.
You stay in it long enough in Dallas, Texas. It's a great place to work. You'll be successful.
Yeah.
You just do some of the basics. I know people who's made a living in this business that I wouldn't give them the time of day just because they knocked on the door. They were persistent.
Yep.
They were annoying, but they made a living.
Yeah.
Beats all I ever seen.
Yeah.
But it's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy business.
It is.
Yeah. But it's fun.
So, well, it sounds like you've been giving out a lot of advice. What do you feel is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
I would say probably the best piece of advice that I was ever given was show up often, be on time, be honest. People remember that.
Yeah.
That's probably the best piece of advice I was ever given.
Yeah.
One more piece of advice I'd say is I had an old man tell me one time, this is the thinking man's game. And you got to think about that just a minute. You can make all the cold calls you want. You can knock on all the doors you want. You can be persistent and be organized. But if you don't think and connect the dots, you're going to miss some deals.
Yep.
That'd be my best piece of advice.
I've always equated kind of what we've done to imagine building a puzzle. You're putting a puzzle together.
Say again?
A puzzle, like the way I think to be able to see it all, like what you're talking about.
Yes.
It's not just making cold calls.
Yeah.
So cold calls is playing checkers.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
And then while you're underneath that is building, you're putting a puzzle together. So I've always felt like you're playing, I call it like you're playing 4 games at once. So you're putting a puzzle together.
Yeah.
You know, that's knowing your market, right? That's the driving.
That's your basic knowledge.
You're just driving the market. Oh, this goes here and that goes there and that guy, just studying, being a student of your market.
Yeah.
Then checkers is cold calls. Very linear, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good analogy.
And then when when checkers hits a point, it's time to play chess. Because you're like, wait, okay, you need this building. I know this lease expiration's coming up in 6 months. So if this move is going to happen here, I can make this move here. And then I know a guy that'll backfill your building here because he needs 25,000 feet with, 3 dock high doors.
Yeah.
So you start playing chess.
Yeah.
And then when you get into negotiating, you're playing poker.
There you go.
So
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
So that's how I've always kind of viewed it,
And saying that, you also have to have a good nose.
Yeah.
You got to, I hate to say it because it's kind of a cold statement, but you need to know how to smell money.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be able to realize it when you walk in the door.
Yeah.
Are these guys capable?
Yeah.
And you pick that up pretty quick.
Yeah.
It's not all about what they're driving out in the front.
No.
A lot of time it's you hear the phone ringing in the background. Basic stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of tells that if you can. What's great, one, you can call on them. You can kind of get a sense of it there. If you can get them to walk you through their building.
Big time.
Then you can really say, okay.
Yeah.
Is this a legit
business? Is it going on?
Yeah.
You're right.
So it's
it's funny though, like Jeremy, as long as we've been in it, it doesn't take you long. I can tell you about phone call if it's real or not.
Oh, absolutely.
I miss it every now and then.
Yeah.
But and it's kind of fun when it is.
Well, it's interesting is I hire brokers now. If someone brings us a deal, they're going to probably get a good shot at listing it for us and all those things. And there's been, I've had 2 situations here recently, and I just told the brokers, I go, you're getting brokered by the other side. Do you see it? Like, you're getting totally brokered.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I had this is on this one piece of property, and it's funny I had to call Caleb on it because I was like, hey, because he had this other piece of property, and we always like trade notes a lot.
Yeah.
He'll call me, be like, hey, I'm thinking about buying this. What do you think about it? Be like, oh, it's
sure,
or like, oh, here's what we're seeing over here. So we like to swap a lot of notes and
keep you out of the ditch.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, I need some info on this building, so I called Caleb, and like my brokers were like totally missing that was your direct competition for us on this deal. And I was just like, you're getting brokered because they were trying to get me to do a lease like 30% below what we were asking. And I was like, you don't know that there's nothing left on the market, And I was like, they're just brokering. And so whenever I uncovered it all, we got the rate we wanted.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I go, you don't have any other options. So here you go.
Where else you gonna go?
Yeah. And, but it was, and then we had another deal the other day. We had a real big deal agreed to, probably the largest deal we'd ever had agreed to.
Wow.
But there was a fly in the ointment. I could just tell. And the seller kept trying to get us to do these. They wanted us to do this evaluation. It was a portfolio deal, and they wanted us to tell them what the buildings were not like kind and quality. They're all a little, it was a individual owned these buildings. And I finally just told the broker one day, our broker, I go, hey man, they are brokering you and their broker. And sure enough, it all died because all they were doing was negotiating me to get a price out to sell it to their tenant.
Wow.
I was like, this ain't gonna make. Like, I can tell you right now, this guy ain't real.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like, at some point, you can just listen to things now and be like, man, I've seen where this all goes, and it goes nowhere.
Yeah.
It goes to working on
we got other things to do.
It's called a lot of practice. If you want to, if you want to practice some real estate, you can work on this.
Yeah.
But like, if you want to play, you need to go doing something else.
There you go.
So, what are you most excited about right now? What are you looking forward to?
If you're going to ask me what would be my goals right now?
Yeah.
Most of my real estate career, Jeremy, I've kind of followed the Trammell Crow model.
Mm-hmm.
borrow as much as you can, buy as much as you can.
Yep.
That doesn't work always for you.
Yep.
You have to kind of know when to hold them and fold them, like the old song goes.
Yeah.
But now it's kind of time to start getting out of debt.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of working on that.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I'd like to be able to do is I'd like to make sure that I'm helping all these young guys that Caleb's associated with, bringing on, and Caleb himself. I'd like to make sure I've imparted all what I know, wisdom, my missteps, my experience.
Mm-hmm.
I like to make sure he has all that.
Yeah.
Before I throw him the keys. That'd be my goal.
Yeah.
Get out of debt.
Cool. Yep.
And pass it on.
Well, the debt side is sometimes easier owning buildings with no worries on them. Debt will magnify your returns and magnify your problems.
It will.
Yeah.
It will. And you just got to be real sensitive to where you see and at this level, I say at this level, my experience level is that, you call the banker and you say, hey, where do you see this going? And they think they know, but they don't know the next time somebody's going to bomb another country over there, and then all of a sudden everything goes to in a handbasket. So you just don't know, but you just kind of have a sense for things, and you pray about a lot of it.
Yeah.
Hope it all goes well.
Yep.
So far it has. Not all well, but a lot of it well.
Yeah. Well, no, and then, I think it's got to be really cool to see, Caleb taking over your company. And
I was sure hoping that's the way it would work out.
Yeah.
Richard and I have been planning this for a long time, and knowing that there was going to come a day where, and we wanted to do something before something happened to one of us.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden we're dealing with one of the wives.
Spouses, yeah.
And we didn't want that to happen.
Yeah.
That's a good way to ruin a long-term friendship.
Yeah.
So we're thankful we were able to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's cool. It's funny y'all are having to redo the building. He's got to modernize it a little bit.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now it's Dad, blow out this wall and that wall. And
Yeah, that's cool.
Put in a good, a swank little kitchen break area.
That's right.
100 big screen TVs,
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, what's something about Floyd Bates that most people don't know? This can be anything.
Well, I'll tell you, I thought about this question. And this is what I'm going to say. Most people, especially my competitors, I'd say that my faith, my devotion to my Lord and Savior is paramount to me. Hadn't always been that way, but it is now. Let me digress to a quick story. I've always felt like after I really gave my heart to the Lord, I said, Jesus, you're mine. Because I was verge of alcoholic, kind of a mess, really, Jeremy, in my early days.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I really made a lot of difference in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And, the people I worked with closely kind of knew what was going on with me. And then I learned the art of giving. And way back then, still with Robert Lynn Company, I had made an extra $1,000, all bills paid, extra.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know what I was going to do with that. I had lots of plans. I'd go buy some, but $1,000. And then I just had this thing, and it may sound strange to you, but it's like something inside me told me to give it away. I'm like, oh, my word. I'm kind of new at this. I don't really want to give $1,000 away.
Yeah.
Hadn't had it in a while.
Yeah.
Well, the next morning, it was still gnawing on me. The Holy Spirit was just telling me, give it away. That's what I did. I wrote a check to whoever I thought was supposed to have it.
Yep.
And I can honestly say, from that day forward, it kind of started the wheels in motion of giving to people I thought were in need. Places that, whether it was church or whether it was. So all this happened 40 some odd years ago, where I'm at today. And you asked the question, what do most people don't know about me? Mm-hmm. I'm passionate about two things. One is about Africa. We'll build a couple churches over there. You can build churches over, $5,000, you can build a church. Yeah. I mean, and it'll be a food feeding center, meeting house. I can show you pictures that'd make you cry.
Yeah.
The other thing I'm passionate about is that I'm part of a group called Heart and Homes Ministries. Mm-hmm. They're also connected to Project Rescue, which you may have heard about. We have one of the first safe houses in the country of Honduras. We open our doors in about a month. We'll house 18 ladies from 13 to 17. It's in a gated type. When I say gated community, I'm not talking about what we think of a gated community. It's just an armed guard, chain link fence, high fences. It's a nice home, though. We bought it. We fixed it up. We furnished it. And there is approximately 7 police officers in all of Honduras that handle human trafficking. So I'm really passionate about that. That's one of the reasons I still like to work as well, so you can, make money to give.
Yeah.
So that's probably what a lot of people might not know about me.
Yeah.
I love it. And if anybody's listening to me and you're interested, we can use you.
Yeah.
I'll take you to Honduras. I'll take you to Africa, wherever you want to go. Show you things you've never seen before.
Yeah. Oh, I can only imagine.
Yeah. Change your life.
Yeah. I believe it.
Well, anyway,
that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
That's probably the best answer I feel like I've ever gotten when I've asked that question. That's really impactful, man.
Yeah, thank you.
That's awesome.
Appreciate it. It's heartfelt.
Yeah.
Heartfelt.
Giving's been a big part of my life too. And it's funny, we have like a little financial discussion here within our team and stuff. And I like to, anybody needs help, personal finances and stuff. And we talked about tithing and giving and all that stuff.
Wow.
And it's funny, Joey, our COO, our asset manager, he's like, I was telling him, I was like, well, you can just give. He goes, yeah, but I want to control it. I said, no, I go, in my mind, I don't want to control it.
No.
That's not my job to control it. My job is to give it. Yeah. After that, what happens with it, I can't control, but like I did my part, Yeah. And so, so I came to this I remember I was like, oh, I need to get involved in my church more, and I need to donate more of my time. And and then it hit me one day, and I think this was something God told me one day and said, don't go volunteer at church.
Don't what?
Don't go volunteer at church.
Yeah.
I don't have hobbies.
Yeah.
I just work.
Yeah.
Like I just enjoyed doing this.
Sure.
And I felt
That's
like
okay.
I felt like God told me one time, he said, look, you're really good at making money. Just make more money and give it.
There you go. That's where I've gifted you at that.
And so it's funny the other day, so my daughter, she's volunteering at church in the nursery right now and all that stuff. And my wife goes, we should just go volunteer while she's volunteering. I said, nah. She's like, what? I was like, nah, not doing it.
Yeah.
I go, I'll go to service, but I'll just work during that. I was like, I told you, this is my job. My job is not to do that. I was like, I'll just sort my email. That's because I got to, but like that, I think, I can be more impactful that way. So really Jeremy, I'm having more fun today. Yeah.
And honestly, that gives me more fulfillment. all the other stuff.
Well, Jeff and I always say this. It's we've already made more money than we ever imagined we'd ever make.
I get it.
You can only eat so many steak dinners.
Yeah.
You just can't. It's
you can go to Cayman Islands and you travel and do all that stuff.
You can do it all.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, it's I remember, during Christmas, me and my wife, what we always do is we always go get like a couple grand in hundreds, and we'll just hand them out. And I remember we ate lunch. We were at the Galleria. This was last Christmas, and we ate lunch, and put $100 bill on the thing, and the waitress just ran me down outside in the mall to thank me. And I was like, God, it's so meaningful to her. It was just nothing. It's really nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's
I get it.
But that makes you feel good about what you're doing.
Well,
thank
you. I'm it's something I don't wear on my sleeve. I just you just quietly go about your business. And,
yeah.
And if anybody ever has any interest in, man, be ready. I'm going to spend some time with you.
That's awesome, man. No, that's cool to have something that you found that makes you feel that way, because that's special.
As I was getting older, Jeremy, I was thinking, what is the one thing I thought I've changed my mind on?
Mm-hmm.
And that probably one thing is that I thought as you get older, you kind of become less relevant. I can't say that anymore.
Yeah.
I can't say that anymore.
That's pretty cool.
You have more fun. I'm having more fun now than I ever had.
Yeah.
Get more calls, get more opportunities. It's just, God's been good to us.
For me, I kind of want to just, everybody's like, so when do you think you'll retire? I go, I'm dying in office. I'm here.
So. I used to think about some of these old guys. Go home and give some of these young guys a chance, guys.
Yeah.
And I get it now.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
We'll see where it goes, but right now we're having fun.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, man, thanks for coming on. This has been great. I'm glad, it's cool. This for me is like getting to document like such a cool segment of life in the brokers that are in this thing we work in, because it's a very cool set of people.
I'll tell you, it's fun because I get to reminisce, and I thought, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And and I'm sure when I leave here, I'm going to have some other stories that I forgot about.
Yeah.
But it's okay.
We'll do the second episode.
Yeah, I'll just tell Caleb to tell him. Yeah.
Now I can book Caleb.
Yeah, there you go.
So, well, man, thanks again for coming on.
You're welcome.
This is great. I'm so glad we got to do it. Floyd Bates, everybody. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate you.